morning, everyone. Oh, thank you. Please stand and rise. Please stand and rise. Please stand and sing with us.
You ready?
You ready or not, come.
Since creation, God has provided everything we need to enjoy a relationship with Him. And even when we messed it up, He already had a plan in place to restore that relationship. Because that's what He's all about, relationship. He wants us to come as we are. He isn't thrown by our mess. He's already made provision for our failures. He has made the way, and nothing that we could do will put us out of His reach, because that is who He is.
You are here, moving in our midst. I worship you. I worship you. You are here, working in this place. I worship you. I worship you. You are here, moving in our midst. I worship you. I worship you. You are here, working in this place. I worship you.
everyone. If we haven't met yet, my name is Carissa, and I just want to welcome you all here today. I am so excited and so proud to see all of you brave people who braved this first snow today. I'm so glad to have you here. We also want to welcome all of our friends who stayed home today and they're watching on Facebook Live or to have you with us. And we're so thankful that you can still be a part of the service today. We would love to interact with you, so please comment. Tell us hi, where you're at, what's going on. We love to be able to hear from you and interact with you. So don't forget to also share and invite that live feed so that your friends and your family and everyone in your circle can be encouraged today as well. So if you are new with us, whether today's your first day or maybe you've been here a couple times, you can text the word welcome to this number that's on the screen up here behind me, and that's going to get you connected in here with Life Church and the things that are going on, and it's just a nice way to stay connected. So go ahead and give that a text. You can get your phone out right now and do that if you want. We're okay with that. We just want to get connected in with you. So another really great way to get connected if you're looking for friends and support and encouragement is to serve here at Life Church. And there's lots of different ways to serve. So whatever your specialty is or whatever your talents are, we definitely have a place for you. And if you're not sure what that place is, I would love to visit with you and help you figure out where that is. We also have a sign up on the Life Church app that you can get plugged in there, and you can sign up to serve that way too. So giving is such an important part of the ministry here at Life Church. It makes an impact with the church and how we function and everything that goes on here, but it also helps us reach our community and have an impact there. So when you give to Life Church, you're also giving to your community. So I would really challenge you today to give, even if it's a small amount, because we serve a big God, and He can do big things. And so even if you feel small, He is not. So no matter what it is that you can give today, big or little, God can use that, and He can use you. So at Life Church, we want you to know that you're welcome here just as you are, just who you are, and that you don't have to be ready for God. So no matter where you are today, ready or not, you are welcome here, and God wants to know you, and we want to know you, and we're so happy that you're here with us. We have an amazing kids ministry here. We have nursery and preschool downstairs. It's a lot of fun, and there's playing and toys, and we have that available through the worship service and then through the main service. So anytime you need that, that's ready for you. And then we have a really fun class for our older kids, and it's in the small theater. So after worship today, we're going to dismiss all these kids out, and they get to dance and sing, and they also get to learn about God. And so we have amazing teachers, and that's a great way to get plugged in. It's so exciting to watch these kids grow. So that's an awesome opportunity for you if you're looking for a way to make an impact. All right. Well, that's all that I have for you today, and I'm so excited to continue to worship with you. So go ahead and stand up, and we'll move forward.
Oh, how high would I Oh
the shadows, no less faithful when the night leads me astray. You're the heaven where my heart is. In the highlands and the heartache all the same. You guys sound awesome. So remember when you guys would play hide and go seek? Someone would be the hider and somebody would be the seeker. I think when you play that game and you're the hider, there's strategy involved, right? You got to find a good spot. You got to be alone. You can't be with somebody else because then you'd be cheating and then you'd be out of the game. You got to be by yourself. You got to be really quiet because if you make a sound, then you'll get found, right? Right? Is that how we play? Okay. So in that sense, I think we play hide and seek a lot with God and we don't even realize that we're doing it. When things happen to us that don't go our way, or horrible things happen, or we are sad, we are upset, we tend to hide. We go where we are all alone, we go where it's quiet, we are by ourselves, we are isolated, and we just mess with our minds. Our minds mess with us as well, and we just get into this deep rut. But at the same time, God is finding us. God is seeking us out. And eventually, God will find us because He is the finder. He is the one that is seeking. He is seeking us. And when He does find us, the whole time He was finding us, He was loving us at the same time because He knew He was going to find us. Just like in hide and go seek, you know you're going to find somebody. And then they're going to be it, and then they're going to have to be the seeker. But when God finds us, then we realize He found us, and here we are. And He's loved us the whole time. And once we finally realize that, then we can go on with our lives knowing that things are going to get better. And when they do go down again, they get low, you get isolated, you feel alone, you feel sad again. You have to remember that God is still seeking us when we are low. And then when He finds us, we have to realize that He continually loves us because He loves us as He finds us at the same time. I've been strong and I've been broken within a moment. I've been faithful and I've been reckless in every bend. I've held everything together and watched the shadow. I've talked tall and I have crumbled in the same breath. I have wrestled and I have trembled towards surrender. Chased my heart adrift and drifted home again. Wondered blessing till I've been desperate to find redemption. And every time I turn around, Lord, You're still there.
How about that? Let's take a second today and just thank the Lord together. We thank you, Lord, for this place that you've given us, this space that you've given us, this time that you've given us. And thank you that you are a good and loving God that is after our heart today and desires nothing more and nothing less. So we praise you in this place, the brokenness, the pain, the struggle, the hurt, in and through it all. In the mountain, in the valley, it doesn't matter where we are. God, you are with us here, you are with us now, and we are grateful. In Jesus' name, amen. Great job, band. You guys always rocking it. Love it. All right, if you got kids here today, we're going to go ahead and dismiss those kids. We have our big kid class, and also for your toddler and little one downstairs. You want to take those kids to the door. Chris will be meeting you out there. Corey's teaching. Tallest guy in church. Aren't you the tallest guy in church now? You kicked that other guy out, remember? Yeah, he's a little... So good to see you guys today. Glad that you're here. And when I'm talking, you guys all have faces, right? And like when I talk, I'm trying to look at your faces, but I don't want you to think I'm picking on you when I stare at you. Sometimes like, why is he looking at me? Because you've got a face and you're out there today. I try as much as I can to kind of do some skimming and stuff. I want people to feel comfortable. I don't want you to feel awkward, but it is a little awkward. Maybe if you've never been here before, when some guy on stage is eyeballing you like crazy when he's making some point that does or doesn't have anything to do with you. I'm glad you're here. I'm glad to be here. The songs, man, they're such a comfort to me. Not only just being an individual here today, but a part of this community and the greater global community of the church. And so today I want to talk to you about this thought and idea out of John 6, but I'm going to go into Matthew chapter 14 to kind of teach the story a little bit. And I want to talk to you today about triggered. That's something I've been learning a lot about in the last, I would say, about 5.5, 6 years. How things in life, situations in life can trigger me into some very unhealthy responses. We're kind of going through life. We have an idea of how things should go or how we want things to go. But in a lot of ways, we can be working against ourselves. The ideas we can have about life can be working against us. Things that we can experience can be working against us. And these triggers can happen in our life to kind of spiral us out of control in our thoughts and in our minds and sometimes in our behavior, where we basically, we had a thought, something triggered this thought in our head, and then instead of just letting it kind of come and go, we focus on it, we begin to feed it, we integrate it into the narrative we're telling about, the story we're telling about ourselves, our life, and one little thing, one little thought. Most of the time, it's based on a fear, or it's some sort of fear that you're dealing with, but it can trigger very unhealthy or abnormal responses in your life and in your heart. So about 5.5 years ago or 6 years ago, I started God was just leading me in my heart out of what I felt like was my pride and this just stubborn position of trying to be right about everything. And he led me into this beautiful place of grace and understanding and just kindness and the goodness of God and gentleness and just all these really, really good things that I would have been lacking in my life before. And about 5.5 years ago, when I began to make a choice kind of to be true to myself and true to what God was doing, which I had always been doing up to that point, by the way. I value that. I think you got to do what you've got to do apart from what the crowd thinks of you. And that's kind of been something I've chose to do in my life. I want to do what I believe is right. I want to do what I believe like God is leading me to do. And I'm not necessarily looking for a vote from the crowd to give me permission to do that. But as I started to follow what I believed was the right thing in my life and in my heart, I started to go through a major season of rejection. and people that were very close to me, friends, family, church people, church groups, all these things. I started to experience rejection from all these places, and going through that season of brokenness and kind of a little bit of struggle. Going through that season, it taught me one thing, that I realized I need people's approval a lot more than I originally thought. But it also started to work in my life where I started to tell myself a pretty negative story about myself. Instead of seeing like, hey, this is the way God wants me to go and this is what God wants me to do, and following like a good path and allowing growth to take place in my life, and maybe a change in not so much how what I believed, but how I believed, and just a tremendous amount of growth in my person and my outlook and everything. But I started to take that rejection and weave it into my story in a way where I couldn't accept the change in my life as a good thing. I started looking at it as basically like a bad demonic thing. And so I started telling myself this story that like, you did something wrong, you're going in the wrong way, you should have never done that. These people are right about you, the things that people say about you are right, that you're, just hard and hurtful things. And God is not looking to bless you, He wants to punish you. So all these things you're experiencing in your life aren't a sign anymore of God's love and approval, but they're a sign of God's impending doom upon your soul and body, basically. And so what happens is I start experiencing rejection in some very close places to me and close places to my heart and close relationships and people that I loved and people that I thought loved me as well, and I don't doubt that they don't or do, whatever. But coming out of that and coming through that over the next years of my life, I'd experienced these little pebbles in the road of either perceived rejection or some sort of rejection in any way, shape, or form. And what it would do is it would trigger me back into this spiral, this downward progression, and this almost depressive attitude and depressive thought about life. And at the time, I was going through major depression. I had horrible depression, and it really, really stunk. In giving you a little bit of an intro, I'm trying to tell you a little bit about myself, a little bit about my story, and I'm realizing just as I'm speaking, there's a lot more there to cover than I could in this moment. But it's these thoughts and things that enter into your brain that you may or may not think are from God, and they trigger fear in you, they trigger doubt, it triggers insecurity, it can trigger you into a depressive episode, it can trigger you into a downward spiral of unending fear and impending doom. And it's these triggers in our life, if you kind of become aware of them, which I've been working on for about the last year, recognizing that these triggers aren't necessarily truth, they're just things that kind of zip into my brain, and when I hold on to them and fight them and resist them and don't want them in my body and don't want it to be true of me and all these things, it increases my anxiety, it increases my despair, it increases my fear, and I start wrestling with these things that I don't want to be true. I start wrestling with these triggers instead of allowing myself to kind of be open to it and open to the experience and allowing some change to take place. I've become very aware of the triggers in my life. I've become very, very aware of the triggers in my life. And a year and a half ago, when I was triggered, I couldn't do anything to stop it. I just started going wherever it took me. I started developing some major obsessions in my thoughts and heart and mind about, oh man, yeah, I know our relationship is there today, but what could I have done different back then, and what should I have done, and what didn't I do, and if I would have just done that or should have done that, or is there anything that I could have done on my end to prevent that from happening, and replaying and rehearsing these old stories where maybe, like I've been talking about, a relationship fell apart or something didn't go the way I thought it went, and just thinking, if I just think it one more time through, there's something in it that I missed that I could have done different that would have changed the outcome completely. And that's not a way to overcome your thinking, and that's not a way to overcome your situation. That's a way to obsess about it. And these obsessions, you can just get stuck in them. And as I started obsessing and thinking and doing all these things just because something would trigger this thought in me, I started weaving into it my spiritual relationship with God and thinking about, yeah, like, what are you trying to tell me here, Lord? I know you don't like me. I know you're super mad at me. I know you want to punish me. And I'm feeding this story so much in my mind, in my heart, because if I'm experiencing rejection from here, I should be sensitive to what maybe God is trying to say to me. And maybe these people are rejecting me, and it's a reality of God's true heart toward me, that he rejects me too. And so these triggers became very harmful to me, and sometimes I would be triggered by a thought, and I would be depressed for months. Months, man. Months. Months of not being able to really breathe or catch a breath, down, discouraged many times, just kind of in a lost, hopeless situation. Depression is an ugly, ugly thing. It's an ugly thing. When you get stuck in it, you don't feel like there's light at the end of the tunnel. When you get stuck in depression, you don't see necessarily a way out all the time. You just see like this is the way it's gonna be. And those triggers, they would get me, and I would just go. And I could go from like trying to be happy to just low, just like that. And so over time, over this last year, what I started recognizing is it's not necessarily that I have anxiety and I struggle with depression, but it's that I let these thoughts come in and these triggers take place in my life. And then instead of having some sort of plan of what I'm going to do, it triggers me, I grab it, I start wrestling with it, I try to figure it out, I try to work with it, and just going through that whole process of it, all of a sudden the thing gets like ingrained and rooted down into my heart, and I can just go through a time of like, man, I hope I get back to normal pretty soon. But if you can be aware of the trigger, then you can have, you can see the way, basically, I would say, to triumph and to have victory over it. So this story is kind of coming from that, and I believe all of us struggle with triggers in our life. And I think fear is one of the major things in your life that is going to work as a trigger for you. It's finding yourself in a situation or a place in life that instead of choosing to go forward, you choose to stay with your fear instead of go with your faith. You choose not, this could be a possibility. You say, this is my reality. And you stay in, instead of living to try to overcome your fear, you live obsessed with your fear. And you take that fear into you so much that you start telling yourself stories about how you're not good enough, God doesn't want to use you, God couldn't use you. It's because of what you did to your first husband or first wife. You're a terrible parent. You're not a good Christian. I don't even know why you show up in life anymore. Why would you ever go forward? And every time you go forward, all you do is fall. You're not spiritual at all. I heard the way you talked this morning to your kid. You know, it just becomes this negative reinforced story that is completely based on fear. And so in John chapter 6, we have this great story that after Jesus fed these 5,000 people, like we looked at last week, 5,000 men, it's 10, 20, 30,000 people for all we know. And after that, this is what happened. That evening, Jesus' disciples went down to the shore to wait for him. They traveled by boats. You imagine that, traveling by boat? And they go to the shore where the boat is, where the water is, to get to where they're going. But as darkness fell and Jesus still hadn't come back, they got into the boat and headed across the lake toward Capernaum. So they were simply just trying to go from this shore to this shore. That's all they were trying to do. They're just trying to sail from this place to that place. These men, most of them are seasoned fishermen. They've sailed before. They're familiar with the sea. They're familiar with that place. They're familiar with what it takes to get from here to there. And so they're just kind of like, you know what? If we read this, it's like, where's Jesus at? What's he doing? Okay, he ain't here. Let's just go do our thing. But when you look at a companion passage, which is Matthew chapter 14, where we're going to spend a little bit of our time today, we see the backdrop to what is taking place here, and I like this. So in Matthew 14:22, it says this: immediately after this, referring to the feeding of the 5,000, Jesus insisted his disciples get back into the boat and cross to the other side of the lake while he sent the people home. In John, it looks like they're just kind of going, where's Jesus at? What are we supposed to do? He ain't coming, getting dark. Let's get in the boat and go to the other side. Why wouldn't we? He don't care about us. He left us. He forgot about us. Let's just do our thing, man. What's the point? But when you look at it, I look at it like people can tell your story one way, but when it comes down to it, you know what you're trying to do? You're trying to do the best you can to follow God in your heart. And there's a lot of choices you make in life. In a lot of ways you pray that you may not even know, like maybe it's a troubled relationship or a troubled time or a new job or just something you're going into, and you might stop in your car or you might stop at your house or anywhere, just say, Lord, just help me or guide me, or Lord, I need you, or anything. And it's this directing in our life that other people may not see, but what you're really trying to do in your life is follow the leading of the Lord. And Jesus said to his disciples, no, you get back in the boat, you go to the other side, and I'll take care of sending the people away. You cross the lake, I'll go tell the people it's time to go home. And that's it. He just tells them, get in the boat, go to the other side. Matthew 14:23 and 24, after sending them home, he went up into the hills by himself to pray. Night fell while he was there alone. Meanwhile, the disciples were in trouble. But I thought I was following God. I was pretty sure that you told me when I was there to get in here to go to there. Why are you doing this to me, God? I was pretty sure that I was sitting here, MYOB, minding MMO, minding my own business. And like God puts me in this place in my life where he's putting me in a boat that is going to put me in trouble. And you know how you start to wrestle. Why are you doing this to me, God? Is God setting these people up to succeed? Is God setting these people up to fail? Because after all, if God's in it, shouldn't there be no tragedy? Shouldn't there be no trouble? Shouldn't there be no more, how should I phrase it? Reality? You don't walk by faith to escape reality. You walk by faith to deal with it. And a lot of people take faith as a ticket to be like, okay, I'll trust you, just take it all away. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for taking it all away. All the pain, all the hurt, all the struggle. I hated my ex-husband for what he did to me, but in one moment of faith, I just let it all go, and I never had another problem seeing him with that other wife that he has. Like, how can you follow Jesus and still have trouble? See, I was being triggered because I was trusting. I was being triggered because I started developing a narrative that was outside the truth of God's reality and the reality he was putting me into. Because here's what happened. Here, listen. Meanwhile, the disciples were in trouble far away from land. Far away. You're too far in now to go back. What you gonna do? You're out in the middle now. You can't go back to shore. You've come this far this way. It's going to be just as hard to get there as it is to go back this way. What are you going to do with your life? You're going to go back? You're going to go forward? What you going to do? And they were away from land, for a strong wind had risen, and they were fighting heavy waves. Now, I think the whole meat of this passage is right here in this verse, this right here in what's being said. And don't go past it, because I don't want you to go home that quick, Aaliyah. She's like, it's my daughter. She's like, just come on, Dad. Let's get home. Click it. And meanwhile, the disciples were in trouble far away from land. in trouble, far away from land. Now, one thing that they did is they stepped out off the shore into the boat, but when they stepped off that shore, they might not have known it, but they were stepping out of reality. They were walking by faith because Jesus said, take the boat to the other side. That's what we'll do then. Get in the boat, boys, let's go. And when they looked at that lake, they just looked out there like it was Canyon Ferry Lake, and all they could see in their mind and in their heart and in everything they were saying to themselves was smooth sailing. You ever tell somebody what you're going to do with the next year of your life and you told it like, oh, it'll just be a year. Like you don't see any of the trouble. You don't see any of the struggle. I mean, I don't know how many people made New Year's resolutions on 2020, but did you see COVID? But you know, when we plan and we prepare, but we dismiss despair. We dismiss trouble. We dismiss reality. And so when trouble happens, it works as a trigger that brings up our fears. And we're so shocked by it. Like, if I could go back to 5.5 years ago, I would have just kind of said, Lord, thank you for the way you're leading me. Thank you for the way you're guiding me. And I did say those things. But what I saw in my heart and in my mind was like, I'm doing a good thing. I'm doing a God thing. I'm doing what God wants me to do. More people are going to be reached. The church is going to it's going to grow. Others are going to come to know the Lord. I'm going to be financially more secure. I mean, and everything fell apart. Like everything fell apart. The Lord's holding it together, but none of that stuff happened. I started facing more rejection. I started facing more ridicule. I had to refinance my home 3 times and sold it the 4th. I went into financial ruin, you could almost say. And you say, are you getting out of that? Working my way out of it. But I'm telling you what, for what I was choosing to do, I was willing to take the risk, but I forgot to take reality into account. I forgot to take the reality of the situation into account. I thought the best for others. I thought the best for my friends. I thought the best for my faith community. I thought the best about people, and I stepped out saying, I've done my best to love them and give to them. And so I feel like when I begin to sail this way, that they're going to return the same favor to me. And it was anything but that. And that's not a knock on people. That's a knock on me observing my life in a way that has nothing to do with reality. It was Disneyland, man. It was a Disney movie. And so you go, you face trouble, and right when trouble happens, you start fighting. Look at that. They were fighting. Fighting heavy waves. You ever fought heavy stuff? You ever had something heavy happen to you? I'm talking heavy. I'm talking where it was heavy, where it didn't restore your faith in God. It nearly took it if it didn't. I'm talking heavy. I'm talking heavy where it's like, I don't know if I'll ever catch another breath. I don't know if I'll ever find the light. I don't know if I'll ever find my way out. Heavy. Heavy news from the doctor. Heavy news about a loved one. Heavy news on your heart. Heavy news in your life. Heavy, 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 heavy. And I think when these disciples saw those waves, what they were experiencing in these waves are about to take everything from me that was about 2 seconds ago worth going after. And I think there's a lot of good truth in this, because for me, It's not about diminishing your suffering. It's not about diminishing your struggle. And it's not about making the world this perfect place. But what if Jesus never called us to fight the waves? Like, what if in order to live this life in a halfway sane way, we have to open up ourselves to some of these realities? We have to leave room in our life for some pain, hurt, fear, doubt, insecurities. When they come, is what I'm saying, is they come into you like a rushing wave, and instead of just kind of letting it be there and maybe just being open to it and using this thing called maybe acceptance, we begin to fight. And the more we fight, the less we go. And we don't even know why we're trying to row. We don't know where we're trying to row. We don't know what's going on. We just all of a sudden know that this is not something I want to experience. Anxiety comes zipping in. And instead of just open and acceptance, it's like, you know what? No. 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 No, no. Being open and accepting of hurt. Being open and accepting of pain. Being open and accepting to the reality of rejection and how much it does hurt and what it does do. And the struggle it is and just the reality of living through that, being open to it instead of fighting it, kind of becomes a much better way to work through it. Now, when you accept the waves, it doesn't mean you like it. And maybe you've had horrible stuff happen to you in your life. It doesn't mean by accepting it, you like it. But fighting it many times is putting all our energy into the wrong thing. Man, I wish I could just explain it clearly. I mean, I don't have it all together. But I started learning in my life that if I started making room, when maybe a depressed thought or a trigger that would come into my mind or some kind of some thought that would work its way in there that I didn't necessarily want to be in there and I didn't want it to be true, instead of grabbing that thought and beginning to fight with all my might, I just open and let it be. Sounds like New Age psychology or something. I don't know. It just sounds like reality to me. If fighting doesn't get me anywhere, then maybe accepting will. Maybe I've been putting so much work into the fight that I've never been able to just accept. It's like if I fight it, it'll go away and it won't be as bad. No, you fight it and it's still going to be there and it's still going to be just as bad. If I accept it, it'll go away and it won't be as bad. No, if you accept it, it may still be there and it's still going to be, it could be bad. But many times, our first action when we begin to experience trouble is not going to be where we trust and start telling ourselves the correct story as it relates to God and the gospel, but we start to tell ourselves very, very negative stories, and that trouble just triggers a world of fear within us and puts us in a fight that we're never going to win. You can fight against heavy waves all your life, and they're going to keep roaring. I kind of looked at this and I said, man, the Lord put them in the boat. They didn't see the waves coming. Jesus saw the waves coming. I've read before where Jesus was up on a hill and they say, he was actually on a hill. He could see that lake perfectly right where they were. They were far away, but they weren't far out of his sight. And I kind of think about it and I'm like, Jason, what if you just learn to ride waves a little better in your life? What if you learn to ride the waves? What if you learned to roll with it a little better? Like if you ever got into a UFC fight, that's the ultimate fighting, it's MMA, it's bloody stuff, man. And I don't like it, but I like to watch it to see what other people are watching out there. So I never miss a fight. But you know, if a guy's in there and he's fighting and he is just stiff and a guy punches him, they're going to knock him out, man. Like Joe Rogan or one of those guys will say, oh man, he didn't roll with that. Like when you're fighting, you can actually like be rolling. You can be rolling with punches where, yes, I'm still taking the impact and I'm still taking the damage, but it isn't necessarily knocking me out because I'm kind of like absorbing and accepting that blow. I'm not just stiff as a board and like, you know, you see those boxers sometimes, come on, hit me right here. The guy gives him 2 and he's like, oh, okay, well, you shouldn't have done that, buddy. But rolling with the punches, to me, this is so helpful. Jesus saw the waves were reality. He saw the trouble, he saw the struggle, and instantly when they experienced the trouble, what goes on in the back of your little amygdala there in your brain is your fight or flight response. And fear just grips you, and instead of being able to breathe and take a second to let like our reasoning capacity take over, we just act primal and we go into survival mode, and it's like, I gotta fight for my life or I'm gonna die here. Fighting. Why is so much of the gospel message about resting, trusting, waiting, yielding, which means like surrendering? Letting God do his work in an attitude and a spirit of trust. In Matthew 14, 25 and 26, about 3 o'clock in the morning, Jesus came toward them walking on water. When the disciples saw him walking on water, they were terrified. In their fear, they cried out, "It is a ghost." So see, when you start battling with fear, and you start battling with trouble, you could say, when you start getting all wrapped up in fighting that stuff, even God's presence is misunderstood in your life. I'm not going to be too whatever here, but if I saw a ghost, my pants would be wet on both sides. If I saw a ghost, you're like, oh, if I saw a ghost, well, I hope you see a ghost tonight when you're all alone. You already have in your mind, oh, it's just like Casper. Really? Have you seen one before? You don't know what a ghost looks like. This ghost was Jesus, they thought. It was Jesus, and they thought it was a ghost. A ghost is just a dead person walking around this world coming to do something to you. But Jesus is walking on water. They're terrified, they're triggered, and in their fear, they cry out, "It's a ghost." Think of how far detached they are from the story as it originated on the shore. Jesus says, just get in the boat and go to the other side. And now they are fighting for their lives. They are scared to get death, and they are seeing ghosts. Because everything they're seeing is triggering the same story or narrative or reaction. They're just feeding their fear. You ever been in a deep place with the heavy waves? And it's many times that God is there, and I believe he's always there and he's present. But we don't recognize his loving hand. Instead, we're terrified. We're terrified, we're troubled. God, why are you doing this to me? Why do you not like me? How could I ever? I couldn't, this is just, it's a ghost. It's a ghost. Many of your triggers that keep you from going forward are fear-based. Period. It's just fear. You have a choice in your life that I can either choose this shore and just stay here for the rest of my life, or I can learn a little something that I believe Jesus was doing on behalf of these disciples, which is called exposure therapy. What does that mean? If you have a fear, maybe struggling, maybe anxiety, depression, insecurities, you don't value yourself, unlovable, I don't know, there's just so many things. There's so many fears that can keep us from going forward in life. So many fears. And what Jesus was doing, he was putting them in a position to be able to face their fears, and even though they left in faith, their faith had to go through fear to get back to their faith. Like if you choose your whole life to surrender to your fear, those fears are real fears. I'm telling you what, it's real deal stuff. Most of the stuff we're dealing with, whether it's true or not, is some kind of fear we either invented or imposed upon ourselves. They don't have to be true. We just have to make ourselves believe that they're true. And so what we do is when we start to respond to fear, and we start to respond to those things in a way where instead of seeing triggers and going forward, we see a trigger and we stay with that thing and we feed that thing. And instead of going forward in our life, we allow our life to shrink. I remember reading a book one time, and I think the guy was talking about anxiety or depression or something like that. And it just made me realize when you get depressed, what you want to do is you want to stay home. You want to keep your sweats on. You want to watch Netflix. You don't want to be around people. You just want to kind of be kept to yourself. You want to do your own thing. You want to be in your own space. You don't want to have to try to communicate what's going on in you to people. You can't deal with what other people are going through because you can't deal with what you're going through. And so what you do is somebody calls you and says, hey, we're going to have this at this time, and would you like to come? No, I can't do it that night. I've got to trim my toenails. And you start finding excuses to escape the exposure. Because when you get in that situation, what it does is it exposes your anxiety. And so we say, well, anxiety will be there. But listen, that's something I value. That's something I want to have. That's a relationship I want to have. That's something I want to do. Even as simple as going to a basketball or a football game where there's people can be absolutely debilitating for someone. Going to the supermarket, but there's food in there. I need it. Or just get on Amazon.com. And you, instead of allowing yourself to be exposed to that fear, you never expose yourself again, and your life just constantly shrinks because you control it in such a way where you think, oh, I've got this all right where I'm okay now. Oh, no, can't be there. I'm sorry. I got stuff to do. Oh, I'd love to, but I can't. And so what I'm saying is sometimes we start responding to triggers in our life in a way where we don't even recognize where it shrinks us back to a place where we're not even living anymore. We're just hiding from our fears. And I think that Jesus in the boat of life, what he's doing is showing us there's something greater than fear. It's faith. He's greater than it all. What's going to happen to me? Is a ghost going to eat me? Is a wave going to devour me? What is going to happen to me? I mean, you think about it, sometimes you take that step and you begin that journey and you got to ask yourself, like, what is the worst thing that could possibly happen to me? What is going to happen to me? The boat gets some water in it? Figure it out. The worst case scenario is I die and I'm with Jesus. That's the worst case. And many times that's the best case. But what is the worst thing that can happen to me? And when I talk about exposure, I'm not talking about exposing yourself to like, well, he abused me before, I'm going to expose myself. No, you are exposing yourself to the life that you value and the life that you want. You're not letting your fear and those troubles take those things from you that you enjoy. You're going forward and choosing to live your life in a way where you're not letting fear take it from you. And if you want to live a life of faith, you are going to have to face your fear. And what is happening to these fishermen on this sea is they are facing their, I'm a big, heavy wave. Look at me. Roar. Look at how big of a wave I am. I'm the biggest wave there ever was. Roar. It's a wave, a big wave. It's going to eat me. It's a big wave. Don't you know your fears are like that? They just come up out of nowhere. Oh my. It was just so calm. You're so big. What are you going to do to me? Are you going to eat me? Are you afraid of people eating you? If they're not going to eat you, you're going to be okay. There's a lot of things you can face in this life if people aren't going to eat you. Like, what are all your fears? They're going to know everything about me. Nobody knows anything about you except what you tell them when you get nervous and start chattering. Well, everybody can just feel how afraid I am. Everybody's afraid, man. Then when it isn't a wave, it's a ghost. It's a ghost. A ghost isn't even something that lives in the natural world. It's all of a sudden this thing that if you stabbed it, it'd go right through it, and you can't do anything to it. And it's like, okay, ghost, what are you going to do to me? Well, I'm going to do what all ghosts do. Boo. And sometimes our fears get so big in our head that we put them on everything. It's Jesus. No, it's a ghost. It's just a wave. Oh, it's gonna kill me. It's not a wave. It's something bigger than a wave. No, it's just a big wave. No, yeah, it is just a big wave. Even the ocean experiences calms. That wave is not going to last forever, but you fight like it is. You're going to go through your whole life. You'll probably never see a ghost. You might think you do, but if you're getting through this thing pretty good, you're not encountering ghosts. And so most of your fears are irrational, but they're almost always unrealized as well. It's because we get triggered, and then we tell ourselves the story. And then we look at everything. Oh, it's a ghost. Of course it's a ghost. I'm a nervous wreck. Why wouldn't it be a ghost? Who was I kidding trying to get in there? It's a way. Oh, it's not. It's going to eat. It's a big old. And then you're just like, okay, I can't live my life anymore. Jesus speaks to them in Matthew 14:27 and says this, and I love this. He spoke to them right away and he said, don't be afraid. They always say, 365 days, don't be afraid is found in the Bible. I don't know if that's true, but I do know when the Lord shows up on the scene, most of the time talking to people, what he says is you don't have to be afraid. What does that tell me? We're all terrified. We're afraid. And many times we might be doing things in our life just to try to safeguard us from our fears. I'll follow God so I won't have any trouble and nobody will ever dislike me again. And if I follow God, my life is just going to be, I'm safeguarding myself from my fears. But when Jesus is present, what he says is don't be afraid. Take courage. He gave them the exposure so they could experience the faith and the grace of a present and loving God who is with them and for them. So I want to encourage you today in your situation. that sometimes you got to go back to the shore. To when it was a little bit more nonchalant, and you were just hanging out, and you were seeing, oh yeah, man, this is what I want, and this is where I want to go. And I felt like God was leading me, and I feel like God's directed me, and God showed me and told me. And you know what? I just got in the boat, and I went. But when I went, boy, I ran into something I did not foresee. But that doesn't mean the shore isn't there anymore. Maybe you just have to be more aware of reality, but take courage. Take courage. Be strong in the Lord. I've read as well where he says, I am here. It's like in the Greek they would be saying, and I couldn't find it, I don't know it well enough, but like he's saying, I am. Like as he revealed himself to Moses and the people that, the burning bush, he said, I am that I am. Like I am. You got God. And God is present with you, and he's greater than every ghost, and he's greater than every wave. And more than that, God is telling you a story that is better than a story of fear. It's a story of love. It's a story of grace. It's a story of goodness. It's a story of kindness. It's a story of compassion. It's a story of blessing. It's a story of beauty. It's a story of restoration. It's a story of redemption. It's a story, it's God's story. It's God's story, his love revealed for you and me on the cross. Jesus giving his life for you and me. Take courage, I'm here. He's risen and he reigns. No matter how much the sea rises, he's risen higher still. I am here. You have a very present God that loves you very, very much. So meaning I can open up and I accept. It doesn't mean I like it. And I'm also not going to open myself up to something and then let it reign over me, but I'm letting myself be open and showing a compassionate stance toward myself, not one riddled with judgment and condemnation, but holding yourself loosely, as they say. And being open to that, and then being present. Like what Jesus did in that moment is he brought them to the present. What Jesus did is he brought them to the true reality. He brought them to the truest reality of them all. That he is here and he is here now. And I got to tell you, folks, friends, that's why I feel like breathing is so helpful. Like that breath went right down all the way into my belly. And what it's doing is it's dispelling all the stuff that's like trying to take me away from right here, right now. Like, look at this. I'm breathing. I've got my feet on the floor. I can feel my feet down there. I'm sitting on a chair. I can feel the chair. I can almost smell the people in the Myrna. I can taste my breath. It kind of tastes like, I don't want to tell you what it tastes like. It tastes horrible. But you know, sometimes we're so drawn out into all these other ridiculous possibilities that aren't even really there, and just coming right back to the here and now. I believe that's where God wants us to live, in the present. And what your fear will do is it'll strip you of that. And it'll get you worrying about things to come, and it'll get you worrying about what they think. It'll get you worrying about what the wave can do. It'll get you worried about the ghosts or the goblins or whatever's going to show up in your life. It'll allow you just kind of to be still, like one of my favorite Bible verses, be still and know that I am God. And so my strength throughout my journey has come in stillness. But 5.5 years ago, I thought it would come through fighting. 5.5 years ago, I thought my strength would have come through getting stronger against my struggle. But what I've learned to do is let my struggle be there, let my struggle go. I gotta tell you something today. It's pretty cool, and I don't know where it's gonna go, but just in my little world. For about 5.5 years, 5.5 years, I was on depression medication and trying to find a pill that could not make me feel as sad as I was feeling. And it definitely helped me. But about 3.5 years into it, probably from the beginning almost, the medication that I was taking also caused me to get racy thoughts. But I was also at the same time trying to find other medications that would help counter that a little bit. So I'm trying to take, there's different kinds of depression medications. I'm trying to find my fix. But if I took one, it would give me side effects that wouldn't allow me to do my man duties. And something was negative, was just happening all the time. And these medications weren't working for me. And I was going to go try this treatment called TMS therapy, where they've kind of put some things on your brain, and it apparently helps people with depression and stuff, and it's real deal stuff. But as I kind of get to that, I started weaning myself off my medication. And then all of a sudden, I'm like, you know what? I don't even need medication right now. And I'm not saying medication is a good or a bad thing. God started working in my life in such a way where I was no longer needing what I needed 5 years ago. And I still struggle because I still have the triggers, but the triggers don't get me like they used to. So depression doesn't have me like it did. And anxiety doesn't have me like it did. Because I'm recognizing that it's not always just a condition of my body that's already there. It's things that I'm allowing to come in that are triggering these responses that send me down these things. And I told my friend the other day, I said, listen, it's just amazing how God works in your life and the way he does things. And it's so beautiful. But what happened for me over the last 1.5 years is my skill grew stronger than my struggle. Like my skill set. Like it wasn't just read your Bible and pray. I've been doing that for years. I had to learn how to deal with the trigger. And when you quit feeding the trigger and letting the trigger trigger you and take you, you actually can live your life in a much more healthy way where when the trigger comes, it's like, okay, like I told you, open, accepting. It's there. But then I don't let it get over me. It's just there. And then present. Right here, right now. Living in the here and now. Being still. Being present. I mean, these are tools that have helped me tremendously. I've been on the verge of panic attacks and stuff where all I've done is just went. Maybe get outside, walk. And where that might have taken me weeks, sometimes months, triggered. I got to read through this because I got to show you the end of this and we'll be done. Look at, so then Peter called to him, Lord, if it is really you, tell me to come to you walking on water. Yes, come, Jesus said. So Peter went over the side of the boat and walked on water toward Jesus. Miraculous in and of itself. Next verses. But when he saw the strong wind and the waves, he was terrified and began to sink. Save me, Lord, he shouted. See, exposure. But what he did is he let his fear take over, triggered, fear begins to sink, and shouts to the Lord, Lord, save me. So instead of like looking at, oh, Peter sunk, you know what Peter learned? If he probably would have been given another chance to walk on water, he probably would have made it a little further. It's exposing ourselves to the fear that we fear the most. It's Jesus taking our faith through fear so our faith can grow, our person can grow, and we can become more solid in our faith and who we are as children of God. And Jesus, in Matthew 14:31, Jesus immediately reached out and grabbed him. You have so little faith, Jesus said, why did you doubt me? And my response to that is, I doubt you because I doubt me. It's not you I'm doubting, it's even though it is, so Jesus is saying you don't ever have to doubt me. He is going to care for you. He is there for you. He is going to walk with you. He is very present. You can be courageous. He's not there to crush you. He's not there to kill you. He's there to comfort you. He's there to guide you. He's there to be with you. He is gentle. He is kind. He is compassionate. He is good. He is merciful. He is holy. He is righteous. And He is ever, ever so loving. Why did you doubt me? Because I was afraid, period. And in the last verses here, it's a mixture of John 6 and Matthew 4:14. It says, when they climbed back into the boat, the wind stopped, and immediately they arrived at their destination. Then the disciples worshiped Him. You really are the Son of God, they exclaimed. Okay. You let your fear get you. You let those things grip you. And you don't follow the exposures that your faith gives you, you only get one shore. But when you allow yourself to be stretched, and you allow yourself to follow the faith that God has given you, and you go into some uncharted territory, but in the midst of it, what you do is you begin to see your fear and realize your fear more greatly, but you also realize His presence more greatly as well. And so your fear begins to diminish and your faith begins to grow. And you begin to see the Son of God in the midst of your furnace. And Jesus brought the calm, but He also brought them to the other shore. And so I kind of look at that in my life and I say, you know what, Lord? I want both shores. I'm not going to live my life in such a way where I'm going to let fear diminish me. I'm going to let faith take hold of me. And I'm going to go for what you want me to go for and go forward. Open, accepting, not letting it reign over me, but going forward in it. Present, understanding His power is with me. His presence is with me. But also seeing that I'm going to get both shores. My life is going to be expanding. It's going to be getting bigger. It's not going to be shrinking. It's not going to be coddling my fear. It's not going to be going to a place where I'm in the corner with a blanket going. And what you have to remember always is this. I got in the boat because there was something of worth there for me. And if you get in the boat, purpose, value, vision, new reality, but also many times it's just choosing to get into the boat, the love boat. Immediately they're at their destination. I want to give you courage to take courage. And see that Jesus isn't just setting you at a shore to build sandcastles in the air until the day you die, but He's leading you forward. And many times going forward, what we're facing is our deepest, darkest fears. But there is one who is greater that lives in the light. And His light transcends it all, and so does His love. And my fear that was once so big, it's so beautiful. You can get on the other side and just say, I did not see that coming. But I wouldn't trade it for the world, because this is still worth it to me. It's still worth it. It's why you keep pressing on. Worth, value, purpose. The presence of God in your life, a very real thing. Triggered, my friends. As you begin to grow in the Lord and you're strengthened in your mind, those triggers begin to lose hold on your heart. And you begin to meet your fear with faith. And you begin to rise up because God made you to sail, not fail. We thank you today, God, for your presence in our life. Thank you today for your goodness. Thank you today for your grace. Thank you today for your presence in this place. Comfort hearts as only you can. Direct hearts as only you can. And help us to see how small our fears are in your presence. We open our hearts today to you. You're working in our life. You're working in our hearts. You're working in such a special way. We thank you so much.
Sing it out now. Whatever I walk through, wherever I am, your name to move mountains, wherever I stand. If ever I walk through the valley of death, I sing through the shadows my song of ascent. Whatever I walk through, wherever I am, your name to move mountains, wherever I stand. If ever I walk through the valley of death, I sing through the shadows my song of ascent, my song of ascent. Oh, oh, sing it out, my song of ascent. From the bravest of all valleys come the pastures we call grace. A mighty river flowing upwards from a deep but empty grave. So I will praise you on the mountain, and I will praise you when the mountain's in my way. You're the summit where my feet, yes you are. So I will praise you in the valleys all the same. No less God within the shadows, no less faithful when the night leads me astray. You're the heaven where my heart is, in the heights and my heartache all the same. Thanks for joining us today, guys. Have a great week. Drive careful out there and reach out to somebody who may be in by themselves all alone. Let them know that God is finding them as well, and to have them have courage to show them courage. Have a great week.
I'm living in a grace where everything is more than I imagined, where what is undeserved is freely given.